Hey, everybody, welcome to the Uncaped Mama podcast, where I help you shed the superwoman persona and just be. As a mama, as a woman, as a friend, as a supporter of mamas, this is just your place to exist. So, thank you for joining me. I am Dom Gonzalez, and I am your host. Let's dive in. Okay, welcome back to part 2 with Arija Israel. If you have not listened to part 1, go back.
You have missed out.
Go back. You have missed it because we're picking up in the middle of a situation and there's a lot of context you're going to miss. So go back. Also, you'll hear her full introduction of everything that she has, but just a quick intro. And again, let us know you and your husband's socials, website, and all of that.
Yes. So I am Dula Arija Pua. My social Instagram is puas_heart. And then website, puasheart.com. I am married to an amazing music producer. He is Gumbo Music _ on Instagram. And we have 6 whole children. Again, don't know how we got there, but we are here and making it. And I'm a labor doula, a certified breastfeeding specialist, a current grad student in a counseling program, all the things. Yes.
And a wonderful friend of redacted number of years.
Yes. We are not going to talk about the number of years.
We're still young, child. What you mean?
We are still young. Yes. Yes. In number, body, physically, no. It's a struggle. I need my walker, but it's all right.
I actually have a walker in the closet. So,
girl,
I know my grandma.
Send it over.
My grandma finally got a scooter. And you know how she is. So you know that she fought them people for the scooter. She got it like 4 or 5 months ago. It's still in the box. If you're not going to use it at this point, please give it to me.
Listen, next time I'm in Dallas, I will absolutely come grab that walker.
Some days are hard. Okay, listen
I know. We in the same boat, girl.
I'm like, who knew? Who knew at 39?
I'd be struggling this bad.
Then I don't make it any better trying to like lift weights at the gym. But that, anywho, y'all, we're real friends in real life. That's why we are being
in real
life. So in part 1, we started talking about the importance of support, the importance of representation when it comes to maternal health. We talked about doulas and midwives and chiropractors. And then we started to talk about a little bit about our birthing experiences at different stages and how I fired my OB and what's the high risk specialist? What's like the exact title?
MFM, maternal fetal medicine.
That. Yes. Fired them. I always had Arija as my doula. Starting after I knew I was pregnant for about 2-3 months, like we got it officially on paper. And then I switched to a midwife who had already been consulting with. And so we ended part 1 with me talking about my preeclampsia diagnosis. So I'm going to pick that up and we're going to continue this conversation so that y'all know sort of what happened. So as I mentioned, I had this stressful day at work. Emotions were all over the place. I had this really intense headache, would not go away. Of course, all you could take. For hours. Yeah. So I started having this headache. It was a Monday. So I started having the headache maybe around 2 p.m. I woke up at like 4 a.m. I still had it.
Mm-hmm.
I went to bed early. So I went to bed. I didn't realize it was 5, but I did eat. I drank a little bit and then I went to bed. I told my mom I had a headache. She wasn't even home from work yet. I went to bed and I want to say I woke up around 9 to use the bathroom. And at that point, I'm like, I still have this headache. It's pretty intense. I took Tylenol, which is all you can take. It did nothing. First of all, I feel like Tylenol needs to be taken off the shelves because the American version of Tylenol does nothing. Not even for
nothing.
Not even for children.
Nothing.
My kids look at me like, what was that? And then I give them half a dose of Motrin, they're good. But it did nothing. And that's pretty much all you could take. Like I probably could have taken a leave and I don't think it would have mattered.
No, it wouldn't have, no.
Because of what was going on. So I woke up in the morning. It was about 3 a.m. or something. I texted you. You had me take my blood pressure, and then you told me you had me take it a few times over a certain number of minutes, and then told me also immediately to contact Crystal, who is always my midwife. And you both happened to be awake that night. Both of you told me this is rare. We are usually never like we're not up at this time.
Listen.
So like it was like divine. I feel like that I had y'all and that like everybody was awake when I needed it because I didn't really know what to do. And so I talked to Crystal. She told me to go to the hospital. At this point, it's like 5:15, 5:30 in the morning. My mom is getting stuff together. I take my hospital bag. We go to the hospital that Crystal recommended. And she said they work, I work with them. They work really well with me as a midwife. They'll probably just check you out. She prepared me really well. They're probably going to take your blood pressure. They're going to draw some blood. They'll give you some medicine for the headache, and they'll probably send you back home. And then, we'll continue to monitor for when baby boy decides he wants to come. So I'm like, great. Happy to take my hospital bag just in case. And still in my mind, I'm going back home. So my mom was informing my brother and my grandma. In talking with you, I also had a person on deck to support who lived closer to me because I think at the time you lived, it's probably going to take you like 40 minutes to get to us.
Yes.
Because
yes, in Dallas.
Terrible.
Yes.
So
even at 4 a.m.
even at 4 a.m. because it was going to be some construction or an accident or something, child. So I had my other person on deck. I'm like, I'm going to the hospital. I probably don't need you. I just want you to know because CK was going to be the person on deck who lived about 15 minutes away from me. And if I needed assistance in early labor, she already knew what to do. So we go to the hospital and they do exactly what Crystal said. They check my blood pressure. It's higher. I don't remember the exact reading, but it's probably on my phone somewhere because I was keeping track, child.
Right.
And they hooked me up to the monitors, which I was not happy about actually, but we'll get there. They draw my blood and then they're like, just rest. They also give me a little bit of an IV and they do talk to me about like different medicines for the headache. So they give me some medicine. At this point, I'm also like a little nauseous. I'm thinking it's probably just from the intensity of the headache. So I'm like, just give me the medicine for the pain. And then once blood work is over, I can go home. Literally what I'm thinking. So I'm like, I'm going to take a nap. My mom's on the couch. She's like, I'll take a nap. And then she's like, oh, give me these people's phone numbers. So she needed your phone number. And then I gave her Crystal's phone number. And she got CK's phone number at that time as well. Because she's like, I know these people are part of your birth team. As you're resting, if they can text me or I'll keep them updated, whatever. So I'm like, cool. Now at the time we're still under COVID restrictions. So the person who brings you is the only person who can be there the entire time you're there. They cannot swap out, right? Like my brother couldn't have come in town and swapped out with my mom. Like it's my mom or it's nobody.
Right.
I was getting clarity on like, hey, I have a doula and my midwife actually may want to come and check on me at some point. If, I stay here, like, can my my doula come? They said, oh yeah, that does not count as your person. Who brought you here, and she can come and go, but you couldn't switch out with like your doula. So if you weren't able to come back, that's what we got. So just setting the scene there because all of this ultimately matters.
Right.
Lab work comes back. My platelets are low, very low, and dropping. I want to say the normal platelet count. Do you know what the normal platelet count is?
I have no idea.
Okay. I just know mine was significantly low.
Yeah, yours were significantly low.
It was like 107, 108. And like, if it drops any lower than 100, we got a problem. My blood pressure was very high. My baby was fine. He was chilling, like as always.
Listen,
so
as always,
he was fine. He was happy, not in an ideal birthing position at all. Not trying to come out. And they start to talk to me about inductions. And I internally and maybe externally start to freak out because I'm like, what is preeclampsia? Why are you talking to me about induction? I know that I did childbirth education classes. I know that I can say no to a lot of this, but this feels different. My mom is
Hmm.
also like like she's sort of like, I don't know what's going on right now. And she's getting frustrated, like
Right.
because
And
of
there
how
was
I'm
the
being
extra
treated.
layer of your health condition.
My porphyria. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So I think that caused a lot of anxiety too, because it's
yep.
like you're talking to me about induction, but you don't even know about this other situation.
Which we have to be on high alert about because it
Right.
could throw me like into an attack. So you inducing me could all of the other things that like the risks of like a forced induction. There's already risks out there, which we're actually about to pause and talk about. But like the added layer of this genetic condition could cause a whole bunch of other things where like you
Right.
kind of got to treat me for this thing while you're trying to get this kid out of my body, while we're trying to make sure he's okay, blah, blah, blah. Like a little terrifying, traumatic. It
Hmm.
was a lot. And I still have a headache. And I'm like platelets. I know what they are, but like I don't understand. It's dropping. Like my blood pressure is never high.
Hmm.
So I'm not going home? Question mark. Because
Right.
Crystal said I
Because Crystal said
and I trust
I was
Crystal.
gonna go
Like,
home.
and then of course we're informing Crystal the whole time, and she's like, "Yeah, remember." And she did inform me like it could happen, but she's like, "Well, the likely scenario is you're going to be fine because of so much that I had overcome. I had overcome the hyperemesis gravidarum. We thought it was going to come back. It didn't. I had gestational diabetes, and working with Crystal, I overcame that and like
Right.
reversed it, which some people don't think is possible. But like, I learned so much about what you can do when your body is supported and when you are supported. And so this was just really throwing me for a loop. So let's have a preeclampsia conversation.
Hmm.
What is it? And also talk to people about like that. And you'll probably get into it, but like there's nothing that you did wrong, because that was the hardest part for me is I thought I did something to make this happen to my body.
Yeah. So preeclampsia happens when a lot of factors come into play. One of them has to do with your blood pressure being, extremely high. So here's some, warning signs: extremely high blood pressure, headache that does not go away, which is, why I was so concerned with you, because it had been hours and you took a nap and woke up and you still had a headache. um, they will typically also check for protein in your urine. Swelling is a huge sign of preeclampsia. And we typically swell, yes, during pregnancy, but the swelling that I'm referring to is like extreme, to where you don't even recognize your own body parts. I actually just watched, there's someone on that I watch on YouTube frequently, and she was pregnant with twins. The very end of her pregnancy, she got preeclampsia. And she said that her feet were so swollen that it hurt to stand. Like, this is the type of swelling I'm talking about, like not a normal like pregnancy type of swelling.
So
But
what's
those are like,
so what's
go ahead.
interesting there too is I forgot I have
You
been
were
dealing with.
swollen.
I was really swollen. It was my face
Yes,
was swollen. I couldn't get my ring off of one finger. It was
I
like
remember.
to get that off. My
Yes.
feet and my ankles were swollen, and I I would just put my feet up. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I'm supposed to put my feet up. Like this is what you do when you're
Yes.
swelling. And I make a pain and inflammation cream. I'm rubbing that on. My other friend who was pregnant at the same time, who had her baby the day before, 2 days before me, she was using it. It was working for her. Y'all, none of that stuff was working this day.
Yeah.
Like none of that stuff was working. The protein was in my urine, like classic, probably every symptom of a more severe preeclampsia, actually,
Right.
because of how low the platelets were and how fast they were dropping.
Yes.
So keep
Yep.
going.
And it literally can happen like just like that. She said her entire pregnancy was fine. And just one day, I think she said when she turned like 35 or 36 weeks, everything just kind of flipped. Like it was completely different. So this can literally happen out of nowhere. Like your whole pregnancy can be fine. And then all of a sudden, one day, you have these signs and symptoms of preeclampsia. And typically, no, it is nothing that you have done. Like your body is just going through this rapid change, and these things are just happening. Or these factors can be happening individually, just kind of like slowly over time, and then they all just kind of collide at once, and then this is where preeclampsia comes in. But it is very dangerous. It is very risky. And in saying that, some providers do use preeclampsia as a scare tactic. So just because they're like, because again, this is something that happened to me, just because they say like, yeah, your numbers are high, or they're only looking at one number. So yes, your blood pressure might be high, but if that's the only thing, that does not necessarily mean it's preeclampsia. Like if your protein count is high in your urine and that's the only thing, that does not necessarily mean it's preeclampsia. It could be the start of it, but that doesn't mean that that's what it is or what it's going to be.
It can also
I
be
remember,
dehydration. Like you're not
yes,
drinking enough.
dehydration.
You know.
When we go to the doctor, we typically have higher blood pressure readings because of trauma, because of racism, like all of these things. During COVID, also, when I was pregnant with Zimri, I experienced actually the same thing that you did. I had a headache that would not go away. And I took my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was high. And the same person, I called Crystal. She was not my midwife because remember, I was planning an unassisted birth. But I knew that I could call her and ask her what to do. So I called Crystal, and she was like, you need to go to the hospital. I also talked to another midwife because I was like, I don't want to go to a hospital. Another midwife that I trusted also said, ma'am, take your tail to the hospital. And when I got there, number one, they were like, well, your husband can't come because it's COVID. So that already was like, not what y'all talking about. Y'all not about to have me in here by myself. They made him wait outside while I went in, and they did all this lab work. But when they asked me about my provider, and I told them that I did not have one because this was very intentional of me not having a provider, I feel like that triggered them to treat me differently. So now it was, well, we have to keep you overnight. We need to monitor you. We want to do a 24-hour urine sample where you literally, every time you pee, they collect your urine for testing. And I was in this hospital room by myself for like 2 to 3 days. No visitors, like not my children, not my husband, like nobody could come in there. And that was traumatic, knowing that those are the closest people to me, and I don't want to be in a hospital system for care for anything. And when were done with the testing, they brought me back, or the doctor came in and was like, okay, you're free to go. And I'm like, the hell? Like, after all of that, like,
What?
that's all yes. He was like, well, your tests are fine, you're free to go. So I looked at my paperwork though. The numbers that were on there were very high. And I was like, I don't know if y'all are playing me, but this doesn't, like, he didn't explain anything to me. So again, I reached out to midwives that I trusted. I told them what the paperwork said, and they actually set me up with an OB that they trusted. And I took him everything. And here's the part that pisses me off the most. Yes, when I left the hospital, I was fine. That part was true, but I never should have been admitted to the hospital to begin with. My
Right.
first numbers from all the tests were perfectly fine. They played me so hard.
Wow.
Yes, they did. And I believe it's because I said I didn't have a provider. Like I was intentionally planning to birth this baby on my own. So yeah, listen, that whole preeclampsia thing, they can use it as they told me I potentially have preeclampsia and gestational diabetes from the first test that they took when I got there. And when the OB looked at it, the one that was trusted, he was like, you should have never been admitted. You were perfectly fine. And he literally said, go home. Because I think I was 38 weeks at this point. He was like, go home, rest, have your baby. You're fine. You'll be fine. Like he literally gave me that extra push of confidence to go home and birth my baby on my own.
Yeah.
Like not, well, I want to be your care provider. I want to see you back. He was like, everything looks perfect. You got this. You can do it. The only time I've ever heard that from an OB.
I feel like that's the same So what's interesting about this whole thing is that man is probably the same OB who is like the head OB at the first doctor's office I had with that woman.
Hmm.
But and he is like, I mean, everybody speaks highly of him. He is
Yes.
very like midwife, natural birth, VBAC friendly,
Yes.
based on the
Twins.
numbers and the research.
So I cannot think of his name, but he also, so he was at a hospital in Denton, and he would even allow twin vaginal births. Women were driving from other states for him to be their OB.
Wow.
Like, amazing care. He believed that women's bodies were capable of birthing babies without like all of these interventions and help and stuff like that. So yeah, I cannot think of his name, but yeah, he was I drove all the way to Denton to see him.
Yep.
He was like, girl, you fine.
Yep.
Go home, do
He
your
was
thing.
he was great. He was the first
Great.
person outside of my hematologist to say, yes, there's potentially like risks and we'll watch it, but your porphyria is not a reason why you can't have a normal vaginal birth with a midwife. He's like, it's literally not
Not even a
stopping you
thing.
from having a water birth and have like he's like it's
Yeah.
actually like kind of insane. He's like, there's actually nothing else that makes you high risk. You
Right.
don't need the MFM. You don't need all of the. It was the first time I'd heard like you don't need all of the ultrasounds. He's like, you might
Hmm.
enjoy them, but you don't actually have a
You
reason
need them. Yeah.
to need them. Like your baby doesn't need all of those, and he's chilling anyway. Like if you
Yeah.
don't have any other medical reason to need this excessive amount of intervention, and that
Yeah.
was why I was not expecting to hear that. And I believe he's a white man. I was not expecting to hear that from a white male
Yeah.
doctor. Like I just
Yeah. And actually, so the OB that I went to is a black OB.
okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just but I wanted to like talk about this and I'm glad that you shared your story because I want people to understand that in systems that are inherently set up for like all of these issues that we've talked about, the racism, the sexism, the like not believing that women's bodies can do what they need to do, the the money part of this, like the greed part, the just like filling up the waiting room with folks and rushing them in and out. There
Hmm.
are people who believe in our bodies. And that's really what was most important for me to know is that
Yes.
with the right supports, my body can do fine. And in the minute that it needs intervention, we don't have to overdo it.
Right.
And they tried
And
to overdo it with me.
yes. And that is so, and I want to pause right there real quick. That is a reason why having whether it's a doula or a midwife or just somebody else, even if it's your chiropractor potentially, why it's so important to have these people as part of your birth team, because we typically have these connections and we know these other people. So for you to want to have this particular birth, or for someone to tell you, hey, you can birth with a midwife, and then turn around and it's like, well, I don't even know what like midwife to go to. Then you can, ask your doula or your chiropractor, hey, do you have any, recommendations for midwives or your midwife? I'm going through this situation. Something is going on. Midwife was like, okay, we'll go and talk to this OB. Like we have connections with, and we know who to go to, like who to trust, who to stay away from, because we either had the experience or we have heard from other people like this is not the person to go to. Like you need to switch your provider, you need to go to this person, not go to this person. That's another reason to have all of these people on your birth team.
And that's all the way down to the pediatrician that's going to care for your child. So I wish I had
Child.
actually asked. I went into a Facebook group because I found an excellent therapist through this Black healthcare providers in DFW. And then I found a really great OB for me before getting pregnant. And I knew there's no way I could go back to her when I was pregnant because she was too popular, but she was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
But there were pediatrician recommendations in there that were
Yes.
not great when I went. And I just literally had a chiropractor appointment, me and my family, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And we were just talking about my son who was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder in November. And she's just like great and talking to me about like his hormones and like how active he is. And she's like, look at this, and look at the dyes in his food and all this sort of thing. All these things can help with his brain development, blah, blah, blah. And so she's like, who is his, who was his first pediatrician? And I told her, and she visibly got upset. And
Yes.
she's like, I'm sorry. She caught herself. She's like, I'm sorry. I have never heard good things there. And she said, what makes me upset is people continue to refer Black
Yes.
families to these Black men, pediatricians, and they will get you there and tell you they're open for everything that you want when it comes to your child, and they pressure you to do a lot of things that they told
Yes.
you they wouldn't. And that's
They
exactly
wouldn't.
what happened with my child. But that's a whole different episode.
I know, that's another podcast. Listen, because the
Yes.
pediatricians, they on the same BS as the OBs.
Same thing. We would probably, that could be a series in itself.
Listen.
So all of this, like, we're pausing the story because all of these things are at play. So I get this preeclampsia diagnosis. In my head, I'm freaking out. I'm also dealing with another person who was making it very difficult for me emotionally and mentally. They start to have these interventions. And I feel like I looked at Arijah a lot.
You did.
Couch in my room, because I'm like, I don't know. And what I loved about you is you asked me, what do you want to do based on this information? And you asked a lot of questions for me, because there were moments where I'm like, I don't even know what to ask.
What to ask, yeah.
Asked a lot of questions for me to make sure we had all of the like specific medical information for this recommendation. I remember eventually having to snap on the doctor because the first intervention was, we got to put you on magnesium. And they kept acting like I was going to like not be able to function. And I'm like, well, I already take a magnesium supplement every day. If you're giving me a level of magnesium that's harmful, I don't want it. Well, we got to give it to you, and you can't eat.
I've had magnesium. You would not be able to function. Horrible. In the hospital, horrible.
But I was confused. I'm like, I'm very confused about what's going on here. Like, why would you offer me something and tell me I can't eat? And the only liquid I can really get is like through this IV and this ice water you keep bringing me. And I want room temp. Like, I just,
yes.
like, I'm like, I can't drink this.
Like, quit giving me ice.
And then you don't want me to get up. Like, I can't get up and go pee because you want me on these monitors. Like, it was a lot. And so I would look at you a lot, because then they would come in all of that, like, stress, and say, we're recommending after the magnesium, this, and this. And, oh, we need to do a cervical check. And I was like, no.
And you know what? Literally everything that you had on your birth plan that you did not want is everything that they were coming into the room offering you, or saying that they wanted to, not even offering you, like suggesting that they do. It was everything on your birth plan was against what they were coming in with.
Yeah. And do you remember there was a moment where they were trying to do, I forgot what the tool was, but it was something that they had to insert. Now at this point,
yes, an internal fetal monitor.
Yes. And I said, no, there's no medical reason why I need that. And I remember getting into this argument, and I said, why do you want to do that? Well, this will like help us with the baby's heart rate and just monitoring. And I said, is it giving you different information than what's already on the screen? Well, no, but so why do you want to put that in my body? Because it'll give us blah, blah, blah. Is it any different than what's on the screen?
Listen.
No. Is it going to tell you when he's coming? Well, no, but it just gives us more information. Is it any different than what? Then no, stop playing in my face. It's like the point I got to. On top of the fact that I had to tell the OB who was like over all the residents, like, nobody else is putting their finger in my body. Like, you are literally assaulting me. And he like froze. Like, it was like I feel like that was the first time he'd ever heard that.
First time he heard that, yeah.
But that's what it was. I'm like, nobody in here has asked me if I've ever been sexually assaulted. I have. That's why specifically, also, I know the risk of, like, if you don't know, like, someone literally putting their finger in your body and digging around to try to measure. It's uncomfortable.
Necessary, yes, like, and unnecessary.
It tells you nothing. Like, you could be 10 centimeters dilated, and that baby still won't come for 2 weeks.
Right.
Like, because it's not ready, because the hormone that like has to be released in your body when they are ready
Right.
hasn't come yet. They're not ready. They're not in the right position in your body. Like,
It's
so
just not time.
like, no, you can't check again. And this was going on for 3 days. Like,
Hmm.
I hadn't eaten. I couldn't get up by myself. I couldn't walk
Yeah.
around. Like, I was not
You were very, very weak.
extremely. Because you
Yeah.
got to remember, I hadn't eaten since Monday night at like before
Right.
5 when I went to bed.
Before. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so we're going through this. I'm fighting, like I'm fighting with this child's father. My mom's getting frustrated. There was a moment where I like accidentally fought with her, but not really.
Hmm.
I think I was just like frustrated and tired.
Hmm.
Arijah is there, leaving to breastfeed and coming back. Her
Oh yeah.
her husband is like,
I
no,
was taking my breastfeeding breaks.
yes. Her husband's like, no, 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 no. She's coming back to help you. Like, it's okay. The whole family is like praying for me because I know that she's going back to say, like, this is really crazy. Like everything that Dom
It
did not want is happening
was
right
happening. Yes.
now. Crystal's on the phone, I know that everything is going against your birth plan, but like, how are you feeling? And I was like, at that point, I'm like, it's done. Like, it's done.
Yeah.
It's out the window. And there was a nurse who, I don't think she had been there all week. She started to try to salvage my ideal birth.
Hmm.
She realized I
Hmm.
had this plan, that I had been there all this week. Like, she was one of the ones who came in and like immediately listened. And she's like, no, 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 we can salvage this. And at that point, I'm like, girl, send somebody in so I can discuss a C-section.
Yeah.
I felt empowered in that moment to make the decision for myself, but only with information. So I'm like, listen,
Right.
I'm tired. Like, even when he come, let's say in the next hour, he's ready. I don't even have the strength to push him out of my
The
body.
strength to push. Yeah.
I don't have
I
it.
remember asking. I remember asking you that.
Yeah.
Like, if you were in labor, like if you were laboring, would you be able to push him out? And you were like, absolutely not. Like, I have no energy. You didn't even really have energy to like lift up a leg,
Nope.
like to do anything. And so those were some of the questions I was asking you, like, and even if you and I think I remember asking, like, even if you got like an hour or two of sleep, do you think you feel like you'd have energy? And you were like, no, absolutely not.
Nope.
And
'Cause
how could you? Because you haven't eaten, like you've been stuck in this same position for days. You're mentally drained. There were so many things that it was like there's no way that I would even be able to push a baby out of my body.
no, it wasn't going to happen. And I think you also, the other thing to think about is like, this was days, and every induction method that they had tried did nothing. Nothing
Did
was
nothing, right?
progressing. And I hadn't been able to sleep, because you would think like, oh, you're in the hospital and they keep telling you to rest. They come in like every 5 minutes. If that monitor
Right.
shifts, if my blood pressure rose, like, it was a constant stream, and not just like one
Yes.
person. It would be like 5 people.
Multiple people. And
Like,
you looking like, who are you? Because I haven't even seen you today.
like
Like this is a new face.
a new face. Like, the only comfort that I had is that doctor, and I can't remember his name. I usually remember it, and now I can't remember his name. Um, the doctor who was like calling the shots was
Yes.
happened to be there all week. When I
Yes.
got there, he's like, listen, there are gonna be residents coming in here, whatever, but like, I am calling the shots. Whatever you want, you tell me.
Yeah. And he was the one that knew about your about porphyria, right?
Yep.
He knew about the medications and stuff like that. Yeah, I
He knew
remember.
about all of it. Like, he's like, oh yeah, I'd heard of it. He knew it. And so he's like, you tell me like what you want to do
Hmm.
at any point, and I will make it happen. He's like, I'm here for the next 4 days. Like,
Yeah.
the whole
And
time.
literally any question that you had, he had a real answer. He wasn't pulling something out of his tail. He wasn't making it up. He wasn't like, oh, I need to go, research this. He knew about your condition and the medications and like how it all just kind of played. Like it literally, he was the perfect person that
Was.
needed to be there for you.
And he wasn't rushing. When I decided I wanted to do the C-section, because it happened in the middle of the night. My child was born at
Yep.
2:45 a.m. or something like that. or 1:38 a.m. Nala was 2:45 p.m. a year later.
Yeah, listen.
11 months later. Anyway,
Yeah.
he made sure, he's like, who do you want to talk to before we do this? I will go find
Mhm.
the anesthesiologist. Like, everybody on the team is going to come and talk to you, and we won't
Yes.
do anything until you say go. Because he's like, listen, this is severe preeclampsia, but in the next hour, it's likely not going to like take a dramatic turn.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want you to feel comfortable before we do it. And that was a blessing
Yes.
because
He didn't make you feel like an emergency C-section was your only option
nope.
when it was severe, but it wasn't an emergency to where now I'm gonna throw you into this even more of a panic and anxiety trying to get this baby out.
And he was great. Like
Yeah.
everything went as he said. Um, my child was born hungry. He was smacking.
Yes.
We have video. I don't know that he
He was
cried.
tearing that little hand up.
Was smacking, smacking his lips, his fingers, like whatever he could get to.
Whatever he could get
Baby
to.
boy was
Yes.
hungry, and so was I.
Yeah, I'm saying, so were you.
He was
said, y'all
ready.
starving me.
He was ready to latch, and then also I don't even know that he got anything out because he also just like went to sleep. But after that, things were okay. Now healing was a process, after that, but I had great care. I was able to continue seeing my midwife. You were supporting me with breastfeeding, which I eventually stopped, y'all, because 3 days after leaving the hospital, I had to go back because I had a headache that would not go away.
That would not go away again.
My blood pressure was even more high than the first time. My platelets were lower. I had preeclampsia again, and I was gone from that child for 9 days.
Yes. Listen, a part 3.
Yes, a part 3. But I was grateful that my mom was there to take care of him. They have a special bond, ended up working out. But I continue to have your support. I had my friend who I went to high school with, who's a postpartum doula, and she was I was like one of her first or second clients. And so she came to support, and everybody was like, rest, eat real food, drink real water.
Yes.
And like, get your baby there and like advocate for them to let you be a human. I had to push them to let me walk. The day that they finally let me walk, take a shower, and finally
and get your baby
can come up there. They're like, oh yeah, your baby can come up here. Y'all went home the next morning.
Yes.
After
you needed your baby.
I needed him. I needed to walk. I needed fresh air. And so that is the birth story in 2 parts for me, and all of these other issues surrounding it. We will make sure that we get you back here because I want to talk about breastfeeding at some point, and also just like other things to consider. But thank you for joining me, and also y'all make sure you follow her and her husband on socials.
Yes, it was great. I love you.
Oh, I love you too. Thank you, boo.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to the Uncaped Mama podcast. Follow me on social media on Instagram, Uncaped Mama and care_Bath and Body. I hope that you found this episode inspiring, relatable, and impactful. And I hope that this triggers a thought in you to be a better support system to a mama near you. Help her to put down the superwoman persona, to put her cape down, to be whole, to be all that she is destined to be as a mother and more. See you next time.